Thanks a lot.
Dead cold start, 0 idle, almost idle, and then a happy idle. And the only change, advancing the timing. I'm Jamie, this is Dead Dodge Garage, and this is Mark's Barracuda. And today, we're gonna make sure that stuff is set right. To set the timing and idle mixtures and such correctly, we first need the engine warmed up a little bit. So I guess I will let it sit here and run. Except this is a brand new cam and lifter, so we're not gonna let it sit here and idle. We'll rev it up a little bit. There's still no tack wire. Why is the tack dancing around? Remember all those people that said blocking the crossover was the worst thing in the universe and it would ruin everything and this thing wouldn't run for crap? Where are you at on that now? Now there's an important note for this engine. Because it's brand new, as the rings wear in, its requirements for timing and fuel settings are going to change somewhat. I'm going to do the best I can to get it right today, but it may well need more tweaking in the future. Yeah. Everyone is amazed by the Barracuda's existence. Anyway, it still needs an alignment. It still needs, well, allegedly the tie rod's torqued down. I'm not doing that stuff. It's going in for an alignment professionally on Thursday, so I'm keeping it at low speed and just kind of going up and down the road. I do want to get some heat in this engine and a few miles on it if I can. It sure sounds good. Oh yeah. The big thing that's happening as you break in your new engine is the rings are sealing themselves to the cylinders. The better they seal, the higher your compression ratio will be, and the more vacuum will be available in the intake manifold, changing the fueling requirements. There's something else that changes the vacuum scene in the intake as well, and that is the timing setting. Tell you what, I do like this timing gun holder that the aftermarket overflow tank provides. Anyway, I've got the light connected with the inductive probe on the number 1 wire in a way that hopefully won't melt this time, and I do have a vacuum gauge attached as well. All right, currently we're pulling, almost 16 inches of mercury vacuum. It's relatively stable, it's wandering a little bit. And that is with my random earball timing setting of 27 base degrees. Obviously we didn't hear any pinging on the test drive, but I wasn't pushing it either. I previously set the idle around 700 RPM and it's already come up to 900 something. That could be part of the timing bump or part of the engine breaking in. Probably both a little bit. I tried to explain in the last video on this car when I finished installing the engine and getting it running and everything that there was a bit of a stutter when you hit the throttle. I don't know that I captured it on video correctly. I will tell you though, now that I've bumped the timing, there is no such stutter. And that's really the point I want to make here. The timing setting on your engine is like the most important thing. And not only the base timing setting, but the curve as well. I installed advanced stoppers in this flamethrower distributor to hopefully yield a curve of approximately 12 degrees. I'm now going to use my timing light to confirm that. I've got the vacuum advance plugged off now. That's what this hose is sitting here, so we'll get no extra advance from that. As I rev the engine up lightly, we should see the rest of our advance come in, and that should happen at like 2,000 RPM. At least if the tuning chart was to be believed. We know it's 27 now, so we'll rev it up. I'll adjust this light until it lines up again. Is a lot more than 12. I strongly suspected this was going to be the case. You see, I set the timing when the engine was breaking in at that 2,000 RPM number with the light. The number it seemed to like most was about 45 degrees. And of course, that was with the vacuum advance plugged in as well. So that's fine. You're not going to get all of that under a heavy load or anything. However, when I idled it down, it was very obvious that it wanted more advance. The engine did not respond the way you would expect something like this to respond. It wasn't peppy. There was a hesitation when you hit the throttle. And as I've demonstrated today, just bumping the base timing completely solves that. What all of this means is we're getting way more advanced than I dialed in this distributor. So I kind of wonder what things are going to look like in here. We've got to remove the rotor to get down to the weights and the limiting straps I installed. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. They're both still in place. And actually, they are limiting the advance somewhat, but it's certainly not limiting it to the 12 degrees I want. And the 6s are the smallest number in this kit. According to their instructions, you're supposed to get that number plus that number for your total advance curve. That would be 12, but as I've just shown you, we have 20. I'm going to have to modify something here to try and get this to actually work. I complained about this setup enough in the previous video, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is just really dumb. Mallory distributors have the adjustable slot. MSD distributors have the replaceable bushing. A stock distributor, I could just weld up the slot. Here, I'm stuck with this. But what I'm going to do is bend it slightly, so hopefully that will limit the amount of advance, and I'm going to put a little tiny washer over the top of it, which will hopefully keep it from angling up. Okay, I think that limited the travel a little bit. There's not much else I could do here. Those 6 straps are about the shortest that you can fit in there that will still go over the weight and the plate. In fact, I bent them to the point that they're just rubbing on the plate as they go down. Hopefully it's good enough. For most performance applications, I shoot for something like a 10 to 12 or maybe even 14 degree curve. This is not a high performance application, but it's a little different than a lot of the stuff I build because of the compression. See, we've got a flat top piston here and a closed chamber head. So this is going to want less timing advance than, say, your typical 360. I'd say something like 32 degrees total is probably what we want. And that means if we get our 12 degree curve, we'll end up with a base timing setting of 20 degrees. As we've already seen, this thing likes 27, but 20 should be pretty good. Oh, and this is just like a word to the wise type thing. I learned on the Demon that with this style cap, same as is used on MSD, you can actually run them with these unclipped and the cap part way off. Don't do that though. The base timing's where we left it. It should be a bit excessive. Let's see how it starts. Kind of still acts like it wants more, honestly. I don't think that changed anything. We've got a 17 degree curve. It's 27 at the base, 44 total right now. To make that work, we're gonna have to back it off to 15 degrees of advanced base. Obviously you can hear how relatively happy and smooth this engine is now at that 27 degree number. Listen, as I back the timing off to 15, I bet you'll be able to hear it change. I'm trying not to get electrocuted today. Yeah. That's 15. Yep, that dropped the idle 200 RPM. Let's see what the throttle response is like now. Okay. Better than I expected. I think we can live with that. Now remember, this is a street driver, not some drag car. We're not trying to squeeze every single horse pony out of this thing, but I do want a nice throttle response, and it seems like we have that now. That is definitely better than when we started. Now I'm going to adjust the idle mixtures by ear. I ran these out a half turn from where they were set in the box. Our vacuum has come up a bit since then. Well, it still wants more though. You want to go for the highest idle here, plus a quarter to a half a turn. Yeah, so they want to be right where I've left them. Notice our vacuum reading did come down when I backed the timing off to about 13. Here's what happens if I drop an idle screw. Here's a half turn in. Okay, it came down a little bit. Here's another half turn in on the same screw. Visible drop. Here I've got it dialed back to about a 750 RPM idle speed. The factory spec, as seen on this sticker, is actually 600 RPM, but we're not going to go that low. That's pretty good throttle response. It smells pretty good back here, a little rich. And I'm wondering if that's just happening every time I hit the accelerator pump there. I noticed in the break-in footage that when I would prep the throttle, we get a little bit of fuel smoke. So I'm gonna put a camera back here and see if that's still the case. All right, we are seeing a bit of smoke. It's hard to say if that's just fuel or if it's kind of oily too. This is still a new engine that's breaking in. In fact, what I should be doing right now is running the piss out of it. I could back this accelerator pump off to its least aggressive spot, but I don't want to. I think we're gonna leave it right where it is. This thing sounds super happy. Oh, and I don't even have the vacuum advance back on yet. Now, as I've discussed before, for higher performance cams, it can be helpful to put your vacuum advance on full-time manifold vacuum. That way, you get the extra advance while it's sitting here idling. Here's what that would sound like on this engine. Noticeable increase there. This vacuum advance gives us 21 degrees of timing. Having all of that at idle would concern me. Doesn't seem to mind that much. I just feel like in certain situations, opening the throttle quickly, you might get pinging. The other thing that can happen conversely though is when you floor it and that extra timing goes away, you can actually notice a dip in engine performance. I've seen multiple stock vehicles, mostly GM products actually, over the years that have that advance run to full-time manifold vacuum, but then the timing is retarded to account for it. So then when you floor the throttle and that extra timing goes away, it coughs and sputters and falls on its face. That's not what you want either. Now the main job of the vacuum advance is to bring in some extra advance when you're cruising, like on the highway. This is supposed to increase fuel economy, and that's great, but in some situations it can actually lead to surging. And I'm a little concerned that having 20 plus degrees of vacuum advance here may do just that. Some vacuum advance pods are tunable. Generally on a Chrysler distributor, there's an adjustment inside the vacuum nipple, but it doesn't actually change the number of degrees you get. It only changes when that vacuum advance comes in by adjusting a spring inside. I don't know if Pertronix built an adjustment into this vacuum advance or not, and I can't even test this on the highway right now because of the alignment situation. So for now, we're just gonna have to say, hopefully it's fine. I only just realized the kickdown spring fell off. I'm not surprised. As previously discussed, for various strategic reasons, I flipped this bit of linkage backwards over to this side, and I did straighten the bend out in it. I've also got it extended out as far as it possibly could, and it does work in this position, but it messes up the factory hardware setup. So I've put a cotter pin back in it, how it had previously, and I've got the spring here, and I think it's gonna be fine. Yeah, that's right. I said cotter pin. You've heard of cotter pins, right? You know, cotter pins, or maybe cotter pins, or cotter pins, or cotter pins, or cotter pins. I, for one, think it's great that people from other countries watch my videos. Thanks for being here. But I'll tell you what, I'm getting tired of being corrected on the name for these stupid little things. In America, they're sold as cotter pins. Get over it. I think at this point I'm done with tuning, at least for now. And that means the fantastic air cleaner can go on, the 360-degree unsilenced non-snorkel air cleaner. First, I need to trim up the air cleaner stud just to be absolutely sure it doesn't hit the hood or look funny. I've got a mark on here, and I'm gonna cut this thing with a bandsaw. I'll then dress this end to make sure the wing nut will still thread on. There's my cut end dressed with a hand file. I'll usually do this on the bench grinder, but it's not plugged in right now. It doesn't take a whole lot to get this to work. You just want to clean it up, try and get any little burrs and bits of debris out of there, and pay particular attention to your start thread. Notice I have it tapered there. That should work just fine. And then you can put the cut end down into the carburetor so no one will ever see it. You'll have a nice factory tip on here. Air cleaner gasket, because I'm a professional. Air cleaner installed. Still needs a quick little dusting. And the hose that goes to the crankcase breather, this one's hanging on there's a little short, so I'm gonna cut a new one real quick. I made this out of basic 5/8 heater hose. I don't know the factory positioning or angle for that. The one on my charger is out here and it kind of looks funky. I put this one back here and it looks nice. With any air cleaner install, you want to make sure your throttle linkage clears, which it does with lots of room to spare here. And on this thing, we've got a solid fuel line. Need to watch that as well. There's more than a finger up there. I just remembered, that fitting was leaking. Is it still leaking? Yes. Yes, it is. So we pull the air cleaner right back off to fix that. And also install the tack wire, which I'm still forgetting. Now, if I had just left the hose barb in there, you know this wouldn't be leaking at all. But because I tried to be fancy and flare a steel line, that's where we're at. I actually suspect it's coming out around the fitting, but I'm not exactly sure. I did drive it this way, as you saw. It's not like it was dripping down on the manifold. I haven't seen any staining, nothing like that. A very small amount of fuel has been coming out of this and evaporating pretty quickly as it's blown off by the fan. But no fuel leak is a good fuel leak, so we gotta try and fix this. That big fitting that I pulled out of the thermoquad uses a 3/4 wrench. I'm gonna secure that while I carefully back off the fitting on our line, which is 1/2 inch. Now, if this is a good fuel pump, we should get a ton of fuel spurting out here because there should always be pressure held. Nothing yet. We know our fuel pump is fuel pumping, but the check valve in it may well be bad. So the $1 million question is this a flare problem or a fitting problem? You know what? There's a little shard of metal on there. Maybe that's our problem. Maybe the flare just sucks. That may have been our issue. I'm gonna give this fitting an extra little reef here with the 6-point wrench. That's a brand new gasket behind it. This is cleaned up. Looks good in the fitting. So maybe it's fixed. Flare fittings are like the bane of my existence. You have to have them perfectly centered or they just don't thread. Fixed forever, probably. Still wet. Maybe worse, actually. And it's 100% coming out of that flare. Trying to put my elbow in the fan. Probably shouldn't have my face right there either. All right. Got the extra reef on the fitting. Still seeping. Well, is it leaking or not? Okay, yeah, there it is. Coming out around the threads. Not here, but here. If you know anything about flare fittings, then you know there's no reason to seal those threads because the sealing happens inside at the flare. Or it's supposed to. All right, it couldn't possibly be any tighter than that. If that doesn't work, I'm gonna have to redo this flare, which is gonna be a problem. Okay, we're good. All right, now I'm under the dash trying to figure out things. Whoever took this cluster out and reinstalled it last time didn't put the speedo cable on. It was me. I did it. Me. Anyway, with that little issue solved, it's time to wire the tack. See that spade up in there, hidden by all those spider webs? It's labeled signal. I don't know how I'm going to get a wire to it, but that's what I need to do next. We'll connect that there, we'll run it through the firewall, and it'll go straight to coil negative. All of the Muscle Era Chrysler products I have any experience with that were equipped with the factory tack used a light gray wire for the signal wire. I don't happen to have any light gray wire handy. I have some white. It's in a new package. I don't really want to open that. I've got some yellow, which will stick out like a sore thumb. I do have a bunch of black. That could work. You know, the tack signal wire on an aftermarket tack is always green. So I feel like maybe using green is a good idea. That way, in the future, it might appear obvious that that's what that is. But I hate the idea of additional aftermarket wiring sticking out like a sore thumb. I'm going with black. Now when I put it on the coil, does it go with the black wire or the other black wire? Keeping random spools of wire around like this is a great thing when you're doing automotive wiring projects. You could set the spool here, run out a length of it, route it the way you want, put it through the firewall or through whatever thing, pull it through there, taking up all the length you need, terminate it on the one end, and then you can terminate it here. I got that signal wire on that tack. Don't ask me how. There were a lot of very bad words involved. Now, rule number 1 for a wiring project is to do a good job, you need to do it in such a way that no one will ever know. You'd have to look pretty hard to notice I ran this black wire up through the unused clutch push rod hole. It's that black wire. It sneaks up behind the insulation, comes up this way through the pedal box and to the tack. There is nothing worse than seeing random aftermarket wires hanging under the dash of a car. Now I'm trimming the wire to length after pulling a little bit of slack through the firewall and getting it tidied again. I always put a little 180-degree bend like this where I want to make my cut. That way it's very obvious. And now it's terminated and installed. And no one will ever know unless they watch this video. And now the air cleaner can go on for almost certainly not the last time. Yep, that's a working tachometer. And now my involvement with this project can end much like the way it began, with the car backing out of the shop. It doesn't run the best. Only this time, it actually runs really good. I put a lot of good pieces into this engine. Was it worth it? Let's find out. Oh yeah, it's almost out of gas. It's gonna be fine. Oh yeah, the alignment's really bad. Over 30 is not an option right now. That's unfortunate. I usually like to test the handling a little bit right here. I can tell you at this speed there's 0 body roll, so that's good. Beautiful day out here. Just beautiful. Great day for Barracuda testing. Carefully. That one wasn't me. I didn't do that. Okay, judging by that little bit of black smoke, it could definitely use a little less accelerator pump. Maybe we'll adjust that. The thing is, my time with this car is pretty much up. Mark's gonna be here in just a couple hours to pick it up. I would have liked to have had the front end done so I could properly test drive it. And just look at this wheel. You could see how bad it's cambered off. We can't really drive it this way. It would probably drift pretty good, but we can't highway drive it. God, I love Barracudas. They have the greatest lines, the grills, the hood inserts. There's so much to love about them. Just make mine a fastback, please. What a glorious machine. Resplendent in whatever shade of green that is, I don't remember. I had a lot of comments on the last video saying how fantastic this engine compartment looks. Yes, thank you. I'm very proud of that. Of course, it won't last because that's just the way engines work. Things are gonna get greasy and dusty and it is what it is. But right now, oh, fantastic. It's a little jewel. It's a work of art, and I couldn't be happier with it. Someone called this a Craigslist rebuild. How dare you, sir? We've got the receipts. People keep asking what kind of horsepower I'm expecting out of this 318. Enough. That's what I'm expecting. In the last video, I might have allegedly said more than 300 horsepower, and that was probably optimistic with these manifolds and the cam we've got in here. This overall package is capable of much more than it's making right now. But remember, street car, stock converter, stock manifolds. These are our limiting factors. Within that, this is awesome. Now, we did actually discuss the outside possibility of putting this thing on a chassis dyno, getting it tuned properly, and seeing what kind of power it makes. Ultimately, that just wasn't in the cards for this. And I don't really see the point. I mean, you hear the way it runs. Why do we need a number? Why do we need it tuned perfectly if it's as close as it seems to be? Now, obviously, down the road, once this engine is broken in a little bit more, we could start reading some plugs and seeing if it does want some changes in the needle or the spring department. Oh, I did mean to check those springs on our step-up pistons, but seeing the type of vacuum this thing makes it idle, I will bet you the stock springs are probably fine. There's no reason Mark couldn't have this put on a chassis dyno in the future, but I'm not really concerned with what the number is. I'm concerned with what it does, and what it does, from my perspective, is pretty great. For now, it's just going to be what it is. I'm criticized from time to time for never finishing any projects. Well, there you go. This one's finished. The way I operate, I just have to bounce back and forth between different things. I've got to get videos out every week. I got to keep that algorithm happy. Most people that watch my channel don't seem to mind the little periodic updates on every project as they move along. That's the way I prefer to work, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. Just understand, on a long enough timeline, these builds will get completed. Some people seem to think I talk too much. And yes, most of my videos, it's all talking. It's storytelling with cars, and teaching, and hopefully a little bit of entertaining. And if you don't like that, don't watch. All right, maybe I will adjust that accelerator pump setting. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed seeing this car and following along with this build. By my metrics, it's been very successful. It runs awesome, it looks great, and Mark can finally have his Barracuda on the road after however long it's been. This is another case where I really wish I'd done a before and after comparison. I just kind of didn't think of it, so we don't have that luxury. You'll just have to take my word for it when I tell you that what we have now is worlds better than what we started with. Of course, we started with mismatched cylinder heads and an engine that sounded like a sick puppy, so yeah. And that's pretty much it, except for one thing. In a message, Mark strongly implied that I need to, test this thing. I think what he said was, let it do what it does. I interpret that to mean a big smoky burnout. Now remember, this thing has 3.2 gears, a factory sure grip, and brand new oversized tires. And I don't want to crash into my shop. But we'll see what it do. Yeah, you just get a little tire smoke for a treat. Kind of need more runway. Oh, that's brake fluid. Mark! All right, I'm sending this one home before anything else breaks. We'll see you on the next A-Body build. Until then, as ever, thank you very much for watching. And remember, if it wasn't always something, you'd have nothing to do. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Oh yeah, buddy. Alignment. What a good idea.